What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. We are going to take a look at a short clip from BBC Radio 4's Today programme, where the host Nick Robinson was talking to the Remoaning soy boy Dominic Grieve, who wants to block a WTO Brexit and hold a second referendum. In this short interview, they are discussing the options to block Boris Johnson from pushing through the WTO Brexit that most of the MPs in Parliament, including him, voted for. The BBC host actually forces Dominic Grieve to backtrack on everything he claims will stop Boris Johnson from holding an election after Brexit is done, essentially admitting they can do nothing to stop Boris Johnson, except maybe pass motions that Boris could just ignore anyway. Let's check it out.
And let us turn to the subject of Brexit. Forgive me. How can MPs block a no-deal Brexit on October 31st? Until last week, most thought the answer to that was simple, in theory at least. Pass a motion of no confidence in Boris Johnson and his government and force an election. But the Prime Minister's allies made clear that he would not quit straight away and he would delay polling day until after Brexit. So what can his opponents do about that? That is a question the former Conservative Attorney-General and backer of another referendum on the EU, Dominic Grieve, has been giving a lot of thought to, and he joins us on the line. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, do you accept that he could do what was said? He could, in other words, refuse to quit when a motion of no confidence is passed and indeed choose the polling day in order to come after a no-deal Brexit?
No, I don't accept that he wouldn't have to quit if there were a motion of no confidence passed against the government, and in the 14 days thereafter it was clear that a new administration could be formed by somebody else, he would have to go.
That's a big if, though, isn't it? I suppose the reason I ask you is, in theory, yes, another administration should come, but because you wouldn't vote for a Jeremy Corbyn government and he wouldn't stand aside for you or someone like you to be Prime Minister, it's not going to happen, is it?
I agree that there are question marks as to whether one could set up an alternative administration in the 14 days. And you're right that if an alternative administration was not set up in the 14 days and he remained as a caretaker Prime Minister until a general election took place, in my view, constitutionally, he should be obliged to maintain the status quo, and that means extending Article 50. But he's made pretty plain he doesn't intend to be bound by constitutional convention.
So you can do what then to force his hand?
I think there are a number of things that could be done to force the Prime Minister's hand in those circumstances, including passing primary legislation through Parliament while it's still sitting, to force him to extend Article 50. We've done it before. We did it back in March, April of this year. And it's possible that that could be done again.
So, in other words, the 14 days that the law now states exists between passing a motion of no confidence and potentially a general election being triggered can be used by backbench MPs like yourselves to try and change the law and keep us in the EU.
It could be used to try to make sure that the date of departure is delayed so that it fell outside and beyond the general election period. I should make clear, I consider that to drag us out of the EU in the middle of a general election campaign and crash us out, I think is fundamentally wrong and undemocratic. And indeed, the arguments that we've been putting forward is that the correct democratic solution is to have a second referendum, which would enable this to be resolved and prevent it from dragging on.
Now, you will know it's not just supporters of the Prime Minister, but experts, for example, at the Institute for Government, who say there's a difficulty here, which is if the government doesn't table any new laws, any legislation, there's nothing for you on the backbenches to amend. You have nothing to get hold of, if you like, in order to try and exert Parliament's will.
It's true that there might not be any legislation, but I think there are other ways by which the House of Commons can assert its wishes. And I think by motions that can be tabled, I think there are mechanisms by which it can be done.
Dominic Grieve, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
So the host tries to explain to Dominic Grieve that even in the event of a no-confidence vote, Boris can continue after that no-confidence vote long enough to call a general election after Halloween, which has been confirmed by many people up until now. Even the BBC are coming round to the idea, it seems, because even though in theory some fake government could take over that would have no mandate whatsoever and the legitimacy of some despot warlord in some failing pisspot state, it's highly unlikely that would happen, since the thought of a coalition government that involved Commissar Corbynoff's Marxist Labour Party and the undemocratic spunk trumpets Toe Swinson and Nicola Fish-Lips Sturgeon, who would ignore 10 referendum results if they didn't go their way, would be 1,000 times worse than a no-deal Brexit to any sensible MP in this country. Even this traitorous shitweasel admits it's not going to happen, before claiming if they can't stop him holding on until after Brexit is done, he should just maintain the status quo, which in his completely delusional mind thinks that means extending Article 50. No, Dominic, you complete fucking idiot. The status quo is that we leave on October the 31st, deal or no deal. You voted for that outcome. You can't choose to ignore that vote now that it doesn't suit you. It just goes to show the whole time he was voting in Parliament, he was under the assumption that everything he did would stop Brexit. Goes to show he's not as clever as he thinks though, doesn't it? Since he didn't even know what he voted for in the House of Commons, the imbecile. The BBC host tries to push him on what they can actually do, which once again Dominic Grieve can't really answer since he does not fucking know. It's all think this and think that. As soon as a no confidence vote is lost by the government, Grieve will have the whip removed, I'm sure, and be kicked out of the Tory party. I mean, he's already lost votes to get him deselected as it is. If the Tory party's had a bigger majority, he would have already been gone. So I would say it's near certain this cunt will be gone soon, and we will celebrate that. The only thing he can use is what they did in March, but the difference now is that Jacob Rees-Mogg is the leader of the House of Commons, to prevent things like that from happening. I may be wrong, but that's what I have heard. Of course, Grieve's only interest is to delay Article 50 so the Remoaners can hold on to that mad hope it will be revoked and we will stay in the EU. He calls following the letter of the law that states we leave the EU on Halloween undemocratic, but thinks a second referendum would be democratic. Does this guy live in reality? It's never going to be democratic to hold a second referendum when you still have not honoured the public's vote in the first one. Of course, the biased BBC host does not challenge his undemocratic wishes, he just moves on. Pointing out to him, it's not just Boris supporters who are saying there's nothing these Remoaning fuckpigs can do. It's experts from places like the Institute for Government who are saying there is nothing you can do if Boris so wishes to take us out on WTO terms come Halloween. Because if the government does not table legislation, the Remoaning traitors on the backbenches can't amend it to block Brexit. It's so good to hear Dominic Grieve having to instantly backtrack on his bullshit though, and go back to thinking he can do something using motions, which we already know a motion is not legally binding, and Boris can choose to say, oh that's a nice little motion you got there, you Remoaning soy boys and undemocratic spunk trumpets, I will use it to wipe my arse. He does not have to listen to a motion since it's not law. This idiot has been told that multiple times before. Well, I'm going to end the video there anyway. I just thought I would show you this clip because I found it comical. Dominic the soy boy Grieve is forced to backtrack on each proposal he has to block WTO Brexit and resorts to thinking a motion will stop Boris from honouring his pledge to leave the EU come hell or high water by October 31st. Now let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Leave a like, subscribe and share this video as it helps the channel a lot, and I will see you all in the next one.